Oh, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Traders of the Rim. Wow, before I can even get my introductions out of the way, it looks like we have a combat trader that's coming to trade with us. When we last left off, we were just getting our defenses set up. We had finished our west side defenses, I do believe, and we had recruited Evan, who fell from the heavens. Now what I'm doing right there is I am deleting Evan's bed, so that way he goes and sleeps in his own bed. And once the traders do arrive, Jenny goes out and checks and sees if they have anything worthwhile for us. And as I'm looking through here, I see a couple melee weapons. I also do notice that there's a great bow there, and Evan does have a decent shooting skill, so I decided to pick up the great bow. I toy with the idea of selling the incendiary launcher, but eventually just decide to buy the great bow. And once we have made that purchase, I have Evan go out and grab it and equip it. Then he can go back to laying down. And the next day I go check on construction, and I see that Jenny has completed the west side of our defenses. That's only the first wall, we will have a couple more, but it suffices for now. And this is where things get kind of fun. As I go down to the architect area and I click on my orders, I will have a plan that I can now start laying out the idea of what would be considered a kill box, or an area where I will set up fights. I'm going to force the people that come to raid us into this area, and then it will make things a lot easier for my colonists. I have been watching a couple other playthroughs, and they have mods installed that I don't, so initially I designed this kill box for the mods that I don't have. After a bit of realization, I do come back and redo our kill box, so that way it's easier for my colonists and easier for me. Now, in hindsight, I probably don't have this large enough. But I guess after our first raid we'll see, and I'll make adjustments as needed, as granite seems to be pretty readily available in this map. And those little boxes that I'm putting down there are for the turret areas. So on the north and south sides I will have 3 to 4 turrets on each side, and I'll block them in with sandbags to make it harder for enemies to hit them. And here I'm just measuring out some numbers to make sure everything is kind of even. And I delete some areas here so that way it allows my colonist areas to hide when people come and attack us. I will put barricades in between and pillars where those white spots are. Now I'm getting a bit nitpicky here, as I kind of want everything to be symmetrical. Turns out that I didn't have the right numbers to make everything symmetrical. But eventually I just kind of let it go, and then I lay down the granite for the walls, the pillars, and everything else that's needed for this kill box to be efficient. And later that day, it looks like marriage is on, as Trustin proposed to Jenny. So those two lovebirds are finally gonna get married. Hopefully that stops the advances from Colt and everything works out really nice. So because there is a marriage that's going to be happening soon, I placed on a marriage spot. This will make sure that whatever parties or festivities that occur during marriage or, when they're getting married will happen in this area. So hopefully everyone can attend. And I just check on Evan to see how he's doing. He seems to be recovering alright. Just takes some time for him to get all ready. And then I have Jenny finish working on the dusters and the cowboy hats that we queued up the last episode. So that way when Evan does recover, he will have that duster and cowboy hat. And it looks like Evan is well enough to hop up and get that duster. And then he goes and grabs a bite to eat. The odd thing is though, that he happens to sit in the same exact chair that Jenny's working at. So it makes things slightly uncomfortable. Jenny decides that that's enough and gets up and delivers her next cowboy hat. So this is where I realize that I've placed the bed improperly in Evan's room, so I have him relocate the bed, then get to sleep. And that's when the caravans depart. We rejoin later that evening. We see Jenny just watching the sunset. I thought this was a pretty cool moment, so I wanted to share it. Very often you find a colonist doing random things, going for walks, watching the sunset, watching clouds. It's a real interesting world that these colonists live in, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And I zoom out a little bit just to take a look at what we've done. We have a great setup. Trustin's cooking, Colt's building blocks. And later on that evening, as Colt continues to build blocks, we have both Jenny and Trustin working on our defenses. I relocate the marriage area and I decide that I'm going to build an art place. Some place for some beautiful art to be built. So that way we can get our beauty up inside of our bedrooms and the common rooms. And I decide where the art bench is going to go. And then I have a look at Evan's injuries and check to see how he's healing. And I notice that he's got a bite scar on his neck. It's going to cause a little bit of pain, but nothing serious. And then we have some visitors from the Kin League traveling by. Doesn't look like they're selling anything, so we just let them be. Later that day, we find Jenny and Trustin enjoying a meal. And Colt soon joins them. And this is when I start accepting that quest for Shelter for a Counselor. So as I accept the quest, we have the pods that arrive with McCartney in it, who is going to be our counselor for the next few days. He doesn't really do anything around the base. All he'll do is eat food and wander around, and that's pretty much it. But we just need to make sure we have a place for him to sleep and some food for him to eat, and then we'll get that Glitter World medicine. And this is when we're presented with the next quest that we have. It's a person from the Broken Empire. It seems like they're a little bit of ways from us. And unfortunately we can't see anything about this colonist. And we just got Evan, so I don't think I'm going to go after her. Sorry, Katie. Later on that day, Evan's finally healed and he is ready to go. And we catch Jenny that's finishing up a dining room chair next to the research table. I would eventually like to have research going here in the near future. And the art bench gets built, which is nice because now we can have some pretty things being built. I check the work orders once again just to see who's going to be on the art duty and who's on cleaning duty, just to make sure that everybody is set up for stuff. And at this point I'm trying to figure out why Colt is not researching anything. He's out playing horseshoes. I see that he does have research set as top priority. And as I'm working on getting these orders set up, a war merchant shows up from the Kin League. They are a tribal faction, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll have something we need, but we can always check. And as they come in, their friends leave. It's very interesting. Didn't even stop to say hi to each other. Just took off. Colt's still building blocks, and we have a solar flare, which means that we will have no electricity in our base for probably a day, maybe two. And later that evening we have yet another event in the form of a quest. And it looks like the Duchess of the Broken Empire is making a request that we help fend off a couple attacks here. I'm not quite sure that we're going to look into it or do it. It seems that we have a tech print for brain wiring, some royal favor, and goodwill. It just doesn't seem that impressive to me. And finally the traders make their way downtown, and Jenny gets out of bed to see what they have. And as we're going through, they don't seem to have a whole lot that I would be interested in. They have a couple bows, but at this point I do decide to sell the incendiary launcher. I just don't think that we'll have much use for it in the colony. And with that, I think our business will be done. I order Jenny to go pick up that money and then head to bed. I do notice a lot of blood, but I don't know why, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I think it was one of the visitors that came to trade with us. He was bleeding profusely. And it's at this point that I realize that Evan isn't set up to do anything other than a few tasks. So I set him up on lowest priority for everything else in the base so he can be my catch-all and do odd jobs around the base that I need him to complete. I think about doing this for the rest of the colonists, but I decide against it. And once again, I'm trying to figure out exactly why Colt's not working on research, and then it dawns on me, we don't have a research project set up. So how in the world is he supposed to research when I haven't told him what to do? So I decided to research on smithing, since that's the first step in getting our auto turrets that we're going to need for defense. And away he goes. Doing research things, being smart. So I have Evan deconstruct the other cooler and set up our next cooler. And then I toy with the idea of building a tool cabinet, which will increase the speed of other events done in the area, such as art, tailoring, or crafting those blocks, since we do have to craft a lot of them. And I have finally set up a place for our stone chunks to be delivered, so we see Xanadu delivering them, and then I have Jenny mine out the rest of that marble chunk there, because I do eventually want to build some flooring for the rest of the colonists. And then I take Trustin and I have him clean up some of that blood, since there is quite a bit inside of our colony. I want to get all that stuff cleaned up so people don't get grossed out. And he stops for a moment, grabs some food, along with McCartney, who has done literally nothing, and then Trustin continues to cook some more food. Later that evening, I see that my kill box is complete, so it's time to set up some other things. And by other things, I mean, let's tear down some things. So I decided to tear down the walls of all of the wood rooms that we built earlier. And Jenny immediately gets up, starts deconstructing those walls. And I said, alright, since she's going to go ahead and start working, let's go ahead and put up some of those steel walls so we can have our rooms back. And with that, Jenny literally starts putting up a one wall and then goes back to sleep. Hey man, maybe she got super tired? I don't know. A little later that day, Jenny wakes back up, starts working on the wooden walls, deconstructing all of them. So I put up the steel because it's less flammable, so we want to make sure we have our colony safe. And then I put in the steel doors. Now something that happened was that the roof actually collapsed. Now thankfully it didn't hurt anybody, but that could be a very, very bad thing. I just wasn't really thinking about it. No one got hurt, no one got injured, but that could have been really bad for us. And shortly thereafter we have our next event, which is malaria. It seems like Evan has just caught malaria. This guy cannot catch a break. And I noticed that we had mined out most of our steel in our backyard, so I did start looking in the caves to see if we could find any more steel. I come out and see that Trustin is working the fields and he is botching a lot of those harvests, but he makes enough to get some meals made. Jenny works on that new metal that I found as she continues to mine in the caves, and dusk falls over the colony. Jenny does want to get some sleep, but I make her finish those walls before she sleeps so everyone has their rooms to themselves again. Later that evening, we see a royal tribute collector from the Broken Empire show up. I just kind of take a look at this guy, see what he's all about. He's got an old gunshot wound. The next morning we wake up and we see that Jenny is tending to Evan with his malaria. And then we have yet another quest. This time it looks like it's somebody fleeing from the Broken Empire. We want to stay in good standings with the Broken Empire, so don't think that we will be taking this quest anytime soon. And I just kind of take a look at the Empire crew over there. They are pretty bad dudes. Don't want to mess with them. And once again, I'm going through and setting up the home area of our base so that people don't go outside to go clean. And then the plague happens. We see that Xanadu has the plague. So I go and check on her, see the infection level versus the resistance level. And then I check to see who is the best animal handler. It looks like Evan is. So as soon as Xanadu lays down to get some rest, I'm going to have Evan go treat her. So he grabs that medicine and goes over and treats Xanadu. Unfortunately, the 10 quality is 0%, and that's awful. That's literally the worst you can have. So I spent some time checking the plague illness versus her resistance to see what is going to happen. And as I'm looking at that, we have a raid that happens. Well, I guess that means that we can check out our new kill box that we made, but I'm still a little concerned about Xanadu. And later that day, Jenny is tending to Evan's malaria, and suddenly the tribespeople of Barga are beginning their assault. So we'll have to get ready here shortly to see what happens. Jenny's feeding Evan, Colt's researching, Trustin is refilling the cooler and organizing. And then out of nowhere, I hear some gunfire, and well, I guess that attack didn't work out so well, and we didn't even get to try out a new kill box. So I built a grave, and then this guy's name was Donkey, so Donkey gets buried. And as Donkey's getting buried, we have another event. We have a psychic soothe for all the males in the colony, which is really, really good. And the trade caravan decides to take off. So I set up another build so that way we can get some button-down shirts for Evan since he does have the tattered apparel debuff. And then with that I actually set up what I want my colonists to wear. So I set everything for 51% or higher because at 50% or lower they get the tattered apparel debuff, and we don't want that. So I'll make sure that there's enough clothes on hand. And as you can see here, I am setting up that restriction or not restriction, and I set that to go. And with that, we will call this episode a close. We'll see what happens with Xanadu next time. If you're enjoying this series, please give this video a like and consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next episode.